My mom leaned into the bridal suite like she owned it. Not a gentle knock. Not a nervous smile. Just her perfume and that look she used to wear when she was about to handle something for me. "Anne," she said, like my name was a problem. "We need to talk about the seating. This isn't really your wedding anymore." At first I honestly thought she meant the usual wedding nonsense. More chairs. Less chairs. Aunt so-and-so can't sit near cousin what's-her-face because of a Facebook comment in 2019. I blinked at her. Mascara wand hovering midair. My hair was half-pinned. My dress was hanging behind me like it was waiting to judge whatever I did next. "What did you just say?" My mom exhaled, like I was the one being difficult. "Don't make a scene. Not today." In the mirror, my makeup artist froze. My bridesmaid stopped whispering. Even my phone stopped buzzing for a second, like the universe leaned in too. I laughed once. It came out wrong. Dry. Like I'd just inhaled dust. "Mom," I said low. "It's my wedding. I paid for this wedding." She gave me a tight smile that didn't touch her eyes. That's part of why we had to make an adjustment. My stomach dropped so hard I felt it in my knees. "Before I keep going, do me a favor. Hit like. Hit subscribe. Because I swear to you, I didn't believe this was happening either. And if you've ever had family members who smile in your face while they pick your life apart behind your back, you're going to want to stay for what they tried to do to me. And what happened when I stopped playing nice. So let me rewind. I'm not the kind of woman who grew up dreaming about a wedding. I dreamed about stability. Quiet. A life where I wasn't constantly bracing for the next mess my family created. My parents weren't poor, exactly. They were just the type who always had a crisis. Always had a reason why they couldn't pay a bill. Always had a reason why someone else should cover it just this once. And I was always the someone else. By my late 20s, I had a career. I had a decent condo. I had a savings account. I had a rule. If I said yes to my family, it had to be a yes that didn't leave me broke, exhausted, or resentful. It sounds simple. It's not when you're raised by people who treat boundaries like insults. Then I met Caleb. Caleb was the kind of man my family pretended to be. Polished. Controlled. The kind of man who makes you feel safe because he's not reactive. He worked in finance. Not flashy, not loud. Just steady. He dressed well. He spoke carefully. He didn't need to prove he was smart. My mom loved him instantly. Not because she loved me. Because she loved what it looked like. The minute she met him, she started saying our family in this new way, like Caleb was an upgrade she'd personally installed. "You really did well," she told me the first time he came to dinner. Like I'd won a raffle. My Aunt Denise was even worse. Denise is my mom's older sister. She's the type of woman who collects people. She doesn't build relationships. She builds little alliances. She has always had a favorite. And it has never been me. Denise's daughter, Kendra, is my cousin. Kendra and I are 6 months apart. We grew up like sisters in the way people say sisters when they mean rivals who were forced to share oxygen. Kendra was pretty in a very practiced way. She always had perfect hair, perfect nails, perfect little laugh. She always knew how to make adults feel like she was fragile and special at the same time. I was the practical one, the one who handled things, the one who cleaned up after everyone's oops. When Caleb proposed, I didn't need a giant production. I didn't need fireworks. I cried anyway. Because for once, something felt like mine. And then the wedding planning started. I decided early that I wasn't going to do the small family hall wedding with folding chairs and a sheet cake. Not because I needed to show off. Because I'd spent my entire life being the person who sacrificed. The person who understood. The person who didn't mind. I wanted one day where I didn't have to be low maintenance to keep other people comfortable. Caleb told me, "Do what you want. I'm marrying you, not the centerpieces." So I did. I booked a beautiful venue. A vineyard about 40 minutes outside the city. It wasn't celebrity level, but it was classy. A white barn, string lights, rolling hills, a balcony for photos. I paid the deposit. I put my name on the contract. I hired the photographer. I paid the retainer. I picked the caterer. I chose the menu. I found a dress that made me feel like I belonged in my own life. The only thing my family had to do was show up and behave. And because I'm not stupid, I also decided to keep control. All vendor communication went through my email. All passwords were mine. All payments came from my account. I didn't want to give my mom or Denise a chance to help in the way they always helped, by grabbing the steering wheel and crashing the car. But here's the thing about family. They don't need your permission to touch your life. They just need access. And because Caleb's family lived out of state, my mom and Denise started volunteering for little tasks. Let me take the seating chart stress off. Let me coordinate the rehearsal details. Let me talk to the florist. You don't need that headache. At first, I said no. Then my mom cried. Denise made comments about how I was acting too big for my own family. Kendra did that thing where she stared down at her phone and smiled like she was watching something funny. Caleb said, "If it helps you feel supported, let them help with small things. You're not giving them money. You're just letting them be involved." I should have trusted my first instinct, but I wanted peace. So I gave them exactly what I thought was safe. I forwarded a few emails. I shared a draft seating chart. I let my mom pick between two napkin colors. That was it. And for a couple of weeks it looked fine. Then the little changes started. The seating chart I'd made got adjusted. My college friends who'd flown in were suddenly on the outer tables. Caleb's aunt and uncle, who were sweet people who'd offered to help with travel for his grandparents, were moved away from the family section. Kendra's friends were getting closer and closer to the front. I'd open the shared file and see edits that weren't mine. When I asked about it, my mom said, "Oh honey, I just moved a few people. You don't understand how family dynamics work." I stared at her. I do understand family dynamics. That's why I paid for a planner. My mom smiled, like I was adorable. "Anne, don't be controlling." Controlling. I paid for everything, and I was controlling because I didn't want my mother reorganizing my wedding like it was her pantry. Denise added her own spin. "You're too tense. Caleb's family will understand. They're not going to hold a grudge about chairs." That one should have hit me harder. Because Denise never cared whether anyone understood. Denise cared whether she got her way. Then I noticed Kendra's behavior shift. Kendra started showing up to things she wasn't invited to. My dress fitting. "Oh my God, I was just in the area." The rehearsal schedule meeting. "I didn't want you to feel alone." The tasting. "I've always loved wine. I thought I could help." And she would stand next to me smiling, like we were the same kind of bride. One day she took a photo of me in my dress, before the seamstress clipped the back. I told her delete that. She did that tiny pout. "Why? You look amazing. I don't want anyone seeing it before the wedding. Okay?" she said, and she tapped her phone like she was deleting it. Then she turned her screen away from me. I should have taken her phone out of her hand. I should have watched her delete it for real, but I didn't want to be that person. I didn't realize they were counting on that. The week of the wedding, everything sped up. The venue called to confirm the final head count, and the number they read out wasn't mine. It was higher. By a lot. I said, "That's not right. My list is 112. The coordinator paused. "I have 148. My chest tightened. "Who added 36 people?" The coordinator said, "It was confirmed this morning." "By who?" There was a silence that felt deliberate. "By the primary client," she said carefully. My mouth went dry. "I am the primary client." Another pause. "I can forward you the confirmation email." My fingers went cold as I opened my inbox. Nothing. No forward. No notification. No copy. The coordinator sent it while I was still on the phone. The confirmation email was from my mom's email address. It included the line, "Bride approved. Thank you for making this easy." Bride. Not my daughter. Not Anne. Bride. I called my mom immediately. She answered on the second ring, cheerful. Too cheerful. "Hi, honey. What did you do?" She sighed like I'd interrupted her. "Anne, it's handled. You just added 36 people to my wedding. They're family," she said. "I don't know half of them." "You don't know everyone," she said, like that was reasonable. "This isn't just about you." I gripped the phone so hard my hand hurt. "It is literally about me. It is my wedding." "That's selfish," she snapped, and her voice sharpened for the first time. "You've been selfish this whole time." I went quiet. Because when people finally show you their real tone, you listen. My mom kept going. "We've given you space. We've let you have your little princess fantasy, but you can't freeze out your own family because you suddenly think you're better." I said very calmly, I paid for this. If I want to freeze anyone out, I can. My mom's tone changed again, softer, almost pitying. Oh, honey, she said. That's not how it works. That was the moment a cold understanding slid into place. They weren't treating my wedding like an event. They were treating it like a resource. Something to redistribute. Something to claim. I hung up and drove to my mom's house. I didn't call. I didn't announce myself. I just walked in because I still had a key, and I'd never been the kind of daughter who needed permission. The living room was full. My mom, Denise, Kendra, and two women I barely recognized, one holding a garment bag. They all looked up at me at the same time. Kendra smiled. Denise's eyes flicked over me like she was checking inventory. My mom stood up, slow. "And," she said, in that fake calm voice, "you're not supposed to be here." I looked at the garment bag. "What is that?" Kendra's smile widened. "Oh," she said sweetly, "it's nothing." Denise's friend, the one holding it, shifted her grip. My mom said, "We're just making sure everything is ready." "For who?" I asked. My mom's eyes hardened. "For the family," she said. I stared at her. "You're not even trying to hide it." Kendra stood up, smoothing her shirt like she was about to step into a spotlight. "And," she said, "don't freak out, we were going to tell you." Denise nodded. "Just not like this," she added, like I was the one being rude for showing up. I looked at Kendra. "Tell me what?" Kendra's eyes were bright. Excited. Like she couldn't wait to say it. She said, "It makes more sense if Caleb marries me." The room went silent. My brain tried to reject the words, like they were in a language I didn't speak. I laughed again. That same dry laugh. "You're insane." Kendra shrugged. "I'm practical," she said. "You and Caleb are fine, but you're not really the right match." Denise added, "She means socially." My mom said, "Anne, you're going to ruin your own life if you force this." Force this. As if I was dragging Caleb to the altar by his tie. I said, "Caleb proposed to me. Caleb is marrying me." Kendra tilted her head. "Is he?" she asked. And that's when my skin went cold for a different reason. Because that wasn't a question. It was a hint. I left without yelling. Not because I was calm. Because I could feel something in me becoming very still. That night, Caleb came over. He looked tired, like he'd been carrying something heavy all day. I didn't run at him with accusations. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't sob. I just said, "Did you talk to my mom?" His eyes flicked away. "Yeah," he said. "About what?" He exhaled. "Anne," he started, and I hated the sound of my name in his mouth in that moment. "What?" I said. "Did you talk to my mom about?" He rubbed his forehead. "She's stressed," he said. "She feels like you've pushed them out." I stared at him. "That's what you took from this?" He looked at me. "I'm trying to keep the peace." "No," I said. "You're trying to keep them comfortable." He shifted like he wanted to argue but didn't know how. I said, "Did she tell you Kendra should marry you?" He went still. And that was my answer. My voice came out low. "Did you know they were doing this?" His jaw tightened. "They're not doing anything," he said quickly. "They're just talking." "It's not real. It's real enough that my venue thinks my mom is the bride," I said. His face tightened. I didn't know about that. I watched him. Not his words. His body. His eyes. His breathing. He was telling the truth about one thing. He didn't know about the venue part, which meant my family didn't trust him either. They were using him, and he was letting them. I said, "Caleb, look at me." He looked at me. I said, "Are you marrying me this weekend?" He swallowed. He said, "I want to." I nodded slowly. That answer was weak. Not wrong. Not evil. Just weak. And if you've ever been betrayed by someone weak, you know it cuts in a different way. Because you can't even hate them properly. You just feel disappointed. Like you built your life on something soft. Caleb tried again. "They're being dramatic," he said. Kendra, your mom will calm down." I said, "My mom told me this isn't my wedding anymore." His eyes widened. "She said that?" "Yes," I said. "This morning." He went quiet. And then he said something that made me see him differently forever. He said maybe she just meant the planning. You know how she is. He was trying to translate my mother into something harmless. He was trying to shrink what she'd done. And that's when I realized I was alone in the relationship, even with him sitting right in front of me. I didn't fight him. I didn't beg him. I just said, okay. He looked relieved. He kissed my forehead and said he'd see me at the rehearsal. After he left, I sat on my couch in total silence. My dress was hanging in my spare room. My ring felt heavy. And I thought, for the first time, maybe this whole thing wasn't happening to me. Maybe this was happening because of me. Because I'd trained everyone in my life to believe that I would absorb anything, that I would take the hit, that I would keep smiling so the room could stay calm. And at the time, I thought the worst thing that could happen was that my family would try to bulldoze my wedding and make me feel small. I was wrong. The next morning, I called the venue myself, not the coordinator, the manager. I asked for the primary contract file. I said I need to confirm the legal client of record. The manager sounded polite but cautious. Of course, she said. May I ask what the concern is? I took a slow breath. I believe my contract has been altered without my consent. There was a pause. Can you come in? She asked. So I did. I drove out to the vineyard in leggings and a hoodie, with my coffee shaking in my hand. The manager, a woman named Talia, sat with me in her office. She opened the file on her screen. And there it was. My contract. My signature. My credit card information. And then, 2 days ago, an amendment. A reassignment. Primary client changed from Ann Marshall to Kendra Lane. Same date, same venue, same package, different bride. Talia looked at me. This was e-signed, she said carefully. I stared at the screen. That is not my signature, I said. Talia swallowed. It matches the signature we have on file, she said. I leaned closer. And I saw it. It wasn't my real signature. It was the little digital scribble I used on my phone when I signed delivery receipts. The lazy one. The one my mom had seen me do 1,000 times. It wasn't a perfect forgery. It was worse. It was lazy confidence. Like they truly believed I wouldn't challenge it. My mouth went dry. How did they request this amendment? I asked. Talia clicked into the correspondence. The request came from an email address that looked like mine at a glance. Ann Don Marshall instead of Ann Don Marshall. One letter. One tiny shift. And every vendor in the world knows exactly how that happens. Someone registers a lookalike email. They forward threads. They reply inside them. And if you're not reading every character, you don't notice. Because why would you? Who expects their own mother to run a fraud operation on their wedding? Talia's face had changed. She wasn't dealing with a bridezilla anymore. She was dealing with a crime. She said quietly, Anne, if this is fraud, we need to freeze the contract immediately. I nodded. Yes, I said. Freeze it. Talia said, we'll need a police report. I said, you'll have it. And then I asked the question that really mattered. Do you have any payment information for Kendra on file? Talia checked. No, she said. Of course not. Kendra wasn't stealing my man. She was stealing my wedding. She wasn't trying to build something. She was trying to take something finished. Talia looked at me. Do you want to cancel? She asked. And here's where you might think I'd say yes instantly. But I didn't. Because I realized something. If I canceled right then, my family would cry. They'd play victim. They'd tell everyone I had a breakdown. They'd paint me as unstable. If I waited, if I moved quietly, I could let them walk further onto the stage they built. And then I could turn the lights on. I looked at Talia. I want you to lock the contract, I said. No changes without my presence and my ID. Talia nodded. Done. And I want you to send an email to both addresses, I said. My real one. And the fake one, confirming that the contract is frozen due to suspected fraud. Talia's eyebrows lifted. You want them to know? I want them to panic, I said. Talia stared at me for a second. Then she nodded slowly. Okay, she said. We can do that. As she typed, I felt something else settle in. Not rage. Clarity. If you're watching this and you're thinking, I would have gone nuclear, I get it. I really do. But my family thrives on yelling. They're built for chaos. They know how to swim in it. They will drown you in it. What they don't know how to handle is someone who stops reacting. Someone who starts moving like a lawyer, not a daughter. On my drive home, my phone started blowing up. My mom. Denise. Kendra. Numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. I called the photographer and changed the password on the online gallery. I called the caterer and told them all changes had to be verified with my voice. I called the florist and updated the delivery instructions to require my ID. And then I called my bank. I flagged the wedding account for unauthorized activity. I asked about chargebacks. I asked about fraud documentation. I asked about freezing future payments. The banker asked, "Is this identity theft?" I said yes, and it felt strange to say it out loud. But it was. It wasn't family drama. It was theft. That night, I filed the police report. Not because I thought my mother was going to end up in handcuffs that week, but because in the adult world, paperwork is louder than tears. Then I texted Caleb. One sentence. Meet me tomorrow morning. Public place. We need to talk. He replied instantly. Okay, are you okay? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed. No. The next morning we met at a coffee shop. Neutral territory. Bright lights. People around. No space for anyone to raise their voice. Caleb looked worried. He tried to kiss my cheek. I leaned back. His face tightened. "Anne," he said. I looked at him. "I went to the venue," I said. His eyes flicked. "Okay. They have an amendment on the contract," I said. "Changing the bride to Kendra." His face went blank. "What?" he said, like his brain stalled. "I filed a police report," I said. "Because someone created a fake email and forged my signature." Caleb swallowed. "Your mom did that?" "Someone did," I said. "And it wasn't me." He leaned back in his chair, slowly. "This is insane," he said. I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "It is." He stared at me for a second, like he was searching for the right reaction, the right way to calm me. Then he did it again. He tried to shrink it. "Anne," he said softly, "maybe it's a misunderstanding. Maybe Kendra just got added to the contract for some reason, like for coordination." I looked at him. "Caleb, they changed the bride." His jaw clenched. "Okay," he said. "Okay. Then we'll fix it." I leaned forward slightly. "No," I said. "We won't." He blinked. "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm not marrying you this weekend." His face drained. "Anne," he said, and his voice cracked, and for a second I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Why are you punishing me for what your family did?" I held his gaze. "Because you didn't shut it down," I said. He shook his head. "I didn't know they were doing this." "You knew they were talking about it," I said. "And you stayed polite." He opened his mouth. I kept going. "You sat in rooms with my mother while she suggested my cousin replace me," I said. "And you didn't leave." He looked down. "I didn't take it seriously," he muttered. "That's the problem," I said. "You didn't take me seriously." His eyes flashed, defensive now. "That's not fair." I smiled once. It wasn't warm. "It's fair," I said. "It's just not comfortable." He leaned forward. "Anne," he said, "I love you." I nodded. "I think you do," I said. "In the way you love peace." His face tightened. I said, "And I'm not peace anymore." He stared at me, like he was finally seeing something in me he hadn't planned for. Then he said very quietly, "What are you going to do?" I picked up my coffee. "I'm going to let them have what they wanted," I said. "Just not on my credit card." His eyes widened. "You're going to cancel the wedding." I took a sip. "I'm going to cancel the part where they think they can humiliate me and still use my resources," I said. He swallowed. "I can talk to them," he said quickly. "I can fix this." I shook my head once. "No," I said. "You can go wherever you want. But you're not standing next to me while my own family rewrites my life." He looked like he wanted to argue. Then he didn't. Because he couldn't. Not with facts. I stood up. And before I walked away, I said one last thing. "If you want to be with Kendra, you'll be with her without me paying for it," I said. Then I left. Now here's where I'm going to ask you something. If you were in my position, would you have stayed quiet to keep the peace? Or would you have pulled the plug and let everyone see the truth? Tell me in the comments. I'm serious, because I thought I knew what I'd do. And then I learned what it feels like to stand in your own life and realize people have been planning around you. That day, I made my plan. Not the emotional plan. the practical one. I didn't cancel everything immediately. I locked everything. Then I waited. Because my family's weakness is patience. They can't sit with uncertainty. They need control. They need confirmation. They need a narrative they can sell. And I wanted them to write their own downfall in real time. The next day was the rehearsal dinner. Caleb's family flew in. His parents, his sister, his grandparents. They were sweet people, quiet people. The kind of people who assume other people mean well because they mean well. My family arrived like they owned the room. Denise in her bold jewelry. My mom in a dress that was too white for comfort. Kendra looking like she was trying to be photographed. She wore a cream outfit. Not white, but close enough that every woman over 40 in the room noticed. I watched her from across the restaurant. She didn't look at me once, not because she was ashamed, because she thought she'd already won. My mom came to my table with that fake smile. "Hi, honey," she said, loud enough for Caleb's family to hear. "You look tired." I smiled back. "I am," I said. Big weak. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Are you feeling better about everything?" she asked. I tilted my head. "What's everything?" I asked. Her smile tightened. Denise walked up behind her. "Anne," she said, like she was doing me a favor by speaking to me. "We're all stressed. Let's not create drama." I nodded. "Of course," I said. Kendra finally approached. She didn't greet me like a cousin. She greeted me like a replacement. "Hey," she said softly. "Can we talk?" I looked at her. "About what?" I asked. Her eyes flicked to Caleb's family. "Not here," she murmured. I smiled. "No," I said. "Here is fine." Her face tightened for half a second. Then she recovered. She said, "Anne, you're being stubborn." I laughed quietly. "I'm being stubborn," I repeated. She leaned closer. "This is bigger than you," she said. "This is about what's right." I stared at her. "What's right," I said slowly, "is you getting your own life." Her eyes flashed. "You think you're better than me," she hissed. I shrugged. "I think I'm paying," I said. Her face went red. My mom snapped Anne. I held up a hand, calm. "I'm not fighting," I said. "I'm just eating dinner." And then I turned back to Caleb's grandmother and asked her about her flight. That's what drove them crazy. Not anger. Indifference. After the dinner, my mom cornered me in the parking lot. Her voice dropped low. "What are you doing?" she demanded. I looked at her. "I'm going home," I said. "You're humiliating us," she said. I paused. I said, "You're doing that all by yourself." She grabbed my arm. Hard. I looked down at her hand. Then I looked up at her face. She released me like she'd touched a stove. My mom's eyes were wet now. The performance. "Anne," she whispered, "don't do this. Think about the family." I stared at her. "I am thinking about the family," I said. "That's why I'm done." I got in my car and drove away. The next morning, I got a message from the fake email address. It was a reply to the venue's fraud notice. It said, "This is ridiculous. Bride approved. Proceed as planned." Bride approved. Not even pretending anymore. I forwarded it to the police officer assigned to my report. Then I called Talia at the venue. "Anything new?" I asked. Talia said, "They've been calling non-stop." I smiled. "Good," I said. "Keep logging it." Then I started the part that mattered. I didn't just cancel. I redirected. I called the vendors and told them the truth in a way that protected them. I said there is an active fraud investigation involving my event. I need to pause all services until I confirm identity in person. Vendors hear the word fraud and suddenly everyone gets very professional. I asked each one for written confirmation that no further changes would be made without my ID. I collected it all. Then I made one more call. I called a small event space in the city. Not fancy. Clean. Modern. Quiet. I booked it for the same evening as the wedding. Not for a ceremony. For a dinner. For me. I invited Caleb's family. Not my family. I sent them a message that said, "There has been a serious issue involving my wedding vendors and an identity theft report. I'd like to see you tomorrow evening. I'm so sorry. I'll explain." They replied with concern. With kindness. No drama. Just care. And that was when I realized something else. I hadn't just been marrying Caleb. I'd been marrying the idea that I could finally have a normal family system. And the normal was sitting right there, waiting, and I'd been too busy managing chaos to accept it. The day of the wedding arrived. And I want you to picture this, because it still feels like a movie in my head. The vineyard was quiet in the morning. No florals being unloaded. No chairs being arranged. No caterer trucks rolling in. Because everything was frozen. But my family didn't know that yet. Because they weren't the ones receiving the real emails. They were operating inside their fake little world where they controlled the narrative. I got ready anyway. Not for them. For me. I put on my dress. I did my hair. I did my makeup. I looked at myself in the mirror and I didn't feel like a bride. I felt like someone showing up to her own life to take it back. Then I drove to the vineyard. Not to participate, to witness. From a distance, I watched cars arrive. Guests in suits and dresses, smiling, excited. Kendra arrived in a white SUV with Denise in the passenger seat, like a royal procession. My mom arrived behind them. And then Caleb arrived, alone. He stepped out of his car and stood there for a moment, looking around. Like something felt off. He checked his phone. He looked toward the barn. His shoulders tightened. Then he walked toward the entrance. Kendra was already out, adjusting something near her neckline. Not a dress. Not yet. She was in a robe. A bridal robe. I watched her laugh at something Denise said. My stomach twisted. Not because I wanted Caleb. Not because I wanted the wedding. Because the audacity still hits you in waves. Then the venue manager walked out. Talia. She approached them with a folder in her hands. My mom's posture was confident. Relaxed. Like she was about to run the day. Kendra's smile was bright. I couldn't hear their words from where I was parked, but I didn't need to. I watched Talia's face. Professional. Firm. She held up the folder. Kendra's smile flickered. Denise's mouth tightened. My mom's eyes narrowed. Then Talia gestured toward the gate. Not welcoming. Directing. My mom's hands flew up. Denise stepped forward aggressively. Kendra's robe suddenly looked ridiculous in daylight. Caleb stood off to the side, staring like he couldn't compute what was happening. And then my phone rang. It was my mom. I answered. I didn't say hello. My mom screamed, "What did you do?" I held the phone away from my ear for a second. Then I brought it back. I protected myself, I said. You ruined everything, she shrieked. You ruined her wedding. I smiled. Her wedding, I repeated. My mom's breathing sounded like rage. You selfish, vindictive. I cut her off. This isn't my wedding anymore, I said softly. Remember? Silence. Then a different voice took the phone. Denise. Her tone was icy. Anne, she said. You're going to regret this. I looked out at the vineyard. I watched Kendra pacing now, clutching her robe closed like she was suddenly aware she was exposed. I said I already did, I told Denise. That's why I stopped. Denise hissed, You have no idea what you've done. I said I filed a police report for identity theft. The silence that followed was delicious. Denise didn't speak for a few seconds. Then she said, Lower, Anne. Don't be stupid. I laughed. Don't be stupid, I repeated. Denise, you forged my name. Denise's voice sharpened. You're going to destroy your own family. I said, No, you did that. I'm just documenting it. Then I hung up. I didn't go over there. I didn't stand in front of guests and announce anything. I didn't have to, because consequences were already walking. Talia had the police report number. She had written confirmation of contract freeze. She had vendor logs. She didn't need my emotions. She had paperwork. Guests started murmuring. Phones came out. Someone pointed at Kendra. Someone whispered. Kendra's face changed from confident to panicked to furious in the space of a minute. Caleb's mother arrived and walked toward him with confusion on her face. He shook his head. He looked like a man watching the floor fall out from under a room he thought was stable. And here's the thing. I didn't feel satisfaction yet. I felt relief, because for once, I wasn't the only person seeing it. The chaos wasn't inside my head anymore. It was in public, where it belonged. I left. I drove straight to the city event space I'd booked. Caleb's family arrived slowly, one by one, looking worried. His mother hugged me and said, Anne, what happened? I sat them down. I told them the truth. Calmly. fact by fact. I showed them the fake email, the contract amendment, the police report. Caleb's father went very quiet. His grandmother held my hand and said, "Honey, I'm so sorry." And in that moment I almost cried. Not because I lost Caleb. Because I realized how hard I'd worked my whole life just to be treated with basic respect. Caleb arrived last. He walked in like he'd aged 10 years in 2 hours. He looked at me. His voice was hoarse. "Anne," he said. "I didn't know." I nodded. "I believe you," I said. He blinked. He looked surprised. I said, "That's not the point." He sat down slowly. His mother looked at him like she was seeing him differently too. Caleb whispered, "They said you agreed." I smiled small. "Of course they did," I said. "That's their whole thing. They rewrite reality and expect you to accept the new version." Caleb's father asked, "Kendra thought she could marry you?" Caleb flinched. He looked sick. He said, "I didn't agree to that. I swear I didn't." I nodded. "I know," I said, "but you didn't stop it." Caleb swallowed. He looked at the table, then back at me. "I was trying to keep the peace," he whispered. I leaned back. "And that's why you lost me," I said. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I did something I didn't expect. I lifted my glass, much champagne, sparkling water, because I wanted my mind clear. I looked at Caleb's family. "I'm sorry," I said. "You flew here for a wedding. You got a mess." His mother shook her head. "You didn't make this mess," she said. And I thought, yeah, imagine that. A family that knows the difference. We ate dinner. We talked about everything except my mother. We laughed a little, because even in chaos, people find weird moments. Caleb's grandmother told me, "You look beautiful." "I'm sorry it's under these circumstances." I smiled. "Thank you," I said. I dressed up for myself. Caleb watched me like he didn't know who I was anymore. And that was fine. Because I was finally meeting myself too. Later that night, my phone started filling with messages. Not from my mom. From people I barely knew. Family friends. Neighbors. Old coworkers. Screenshots of posts. Kendra had posted a crying selfie. She wrote something about betrayal. About jealousy. About how some people can't stand to see others happy. Denise commented with a string of heart emojis. My mom posted a vague quote about how blood isn't always loyal. They were trying to control the story. So I did what I do best. I controlled the facts. I didn't write a rant. I didn't write an essay. I posted one photo. A screenshot of the contract amendment showing the name change. And one sentence. "Identity theft is not a wedding plan." That was it. No tags. No screaming. Just evidence. And the internet does what it always does when you hand it a clean villain. It ate them alive. I went to sleep that night in my dress, hanging on a chair, and I slept like someone who had finally stopped carrying other people. Over the next week, the consequences kept stacking. The venue cooperated fully. The police report moved forward because it wasn't just an accusation. It had digital traces, the fake email account, the IP login logs, the forwarded threads, the phone number used for verification. My mom and Denise tried to play dumb. They tried to say Kendra must have done it. Kendra tried to say my mom must have done it. Denise tried to say the venue made a clerical mistake. But clerical mistakes don't create fake domains. And clerical mistakes don't send panicked emails demanding proceed as planned. Caleb moved out of the apartment we shared within 2 days. Not because I threw him out. Because he finally understood that I wasn't coming back to the version of us where I swallowed discomfort to keep the peace. He sent me a long message about regret. I didn't reply. Because here's the thing I need you to understand. Sometimes the biggest revenge isn't what you do to the villains. It's what you stop doing for the people who let the villains in. Caleb's family stayed in contact with me. Not because they wanted drama. Because they cared. His mother invited me to lunch. She told me, "I'm proud of you." No one had ever said that to me in a moment like this. My mom, meanwhile, started calling everyone we knew. Telling them I was mentally unstable. That I'd lost it. That I'd sabotaged my own wedding because I was jealous of Kendra. And for a few days, it hurt. Not because I believed her. Because I realized she'd been doing that my whole life. Rewriting me for other people. Turning me into a story she could manage. But then people started seeing her pattern. Because when you hand someone evidence and they still choose the lie, They stop looking like a victim. They start looking like a manipulator. Now I'm going to say something that might make you laugh. About 2 weeks after the wedding, my mom showed up at my door. Not alone. With Kendra. Kendra had a folder in her hands. I opened the door and leaned against the frame like I had all day. My mom started with the tears. And, she sobbed, "This has gone too far." I looked at Kendra's folder. "What's that?" I asked. Kendra lifted it slightly. "Your receipts," she said, and her voice shook. "I'm trying to fix this." I stared at her. "Fix what?" I asked. "Your felony?" My mom gasped like I was vulgar. Kendra's lips pressed tight. She said, "Anne, people are being so mean. You posted that screenshot and now." I laughed. "You stole my wedding," I said. "And you're upset about mean comments." My mom snapped, "Anne, stop. This is family." I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "That's the problem." Kendra opened the folder and pulled out papers. She held them out like she was offering me peace. "I'll reimburse you," she said. "I'll pay you back for the deposits. And we'll just move on." I stared at the papers. They weren't checks. They were printed payment plans. She had typed up a little schedule like she was settling a gym membership. My mouth fell open for a second and then I started laughing for real. I couldn't help it. Because the entitlement was so pure, it was almost impressive. I said, "Kendra, you don't have the money." Her face flushed. "I can get it," she snapped. "With what?" I asked. "Your personality?" My mom stepped forward. "Anne," she hissed, "you're enjoying this." I looked at her. "I'm enjoying the part where you finally can't control me," I said. My mom's tears vanished instantly. Like a switch. Her eyes turned flat. "You're going to be alone," she said coldly. "You'll regret this." I smiled. "I was alone with you," I said. "This is an upgrade." Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I didn't threaten. I didn't posture. I just said, "If you do not leave my property right now, I will call the police and ask them to document harassment related to an active fraud investigation." Kendra's eyes widened. My mom's mouth opened. No sound came out. Because for the first time they were dealing with the adult version of me. The one who speaks in documentation. They backed up. Kendra whispered, "You're really doing this." I said, "I didn't do this. You did." My mom looked at me like she wanted to spit. Then she said, "Fine." And she walked away. Kendra lingered, like she wanted to say something clever. She couldn't find it, so she followed. I closed my door. And I stood there for a minute, breathing. Now let me drop the second question here, because if you're still listening at this point, you're my people. Have you ever had someone betray you, then show up like you owe them a softer ending? If you have, comment it, even if you keep it short. Because I swear there's something healing about realizing you're not the only one who's dealt with this kind of audacity. A month later, the police investigation didn't end with some dramatic courtroom scene. It ended with quiet pressure. Emails, requests, interviews. And then one day, Denise's husband called me. He'd never called me directly in my life. His voice was tight. "Anne," he said, "can we talk?" I said, "About what?" He exhaled. "Denise," he said. I went quiet. He said, "She's blaming your mother. Your mother's blaming her. Kendra's blaming both. And now they're talking about you like you're the one doing this to them." I laughed once. He sounded exhausted. "Anne," he said, "what do you want?" I thought about it. Not revenge. Not humiliation. Just finality. "I want them out of my life," I said. He went quiet. "I can't fix that," he said. "I know," I replied. "That's my job." Then I did the thing that really ended it. I sent one email. Not a dramatic one. A clean one. To my mother. To Denise. To Kendra. It said, "Effective immediately, all communication must be in writing. Do not contact me by phone or in person. Any attempts to contact me outside of written communication will be documented and forwarded to the investigating officer." That's it. No emotion. No negotiation. And because they live off emotional access, it starved them. Caleb, for his part, tried once more. He showed up outside my building one evening. He looked thinner, tired, like he'd been living inside regret. I didn't invite him in. I stood outside with my arms folded. He said, "Anne, I'm sorry." I nodded. "I know," I said. He swallowed. I should have shut it down, he said. I thought it was talk. I didn't think they'd really forge my identity, I finished. He flinched. Yeah, he whispered. He looked at me with this desperate softness. I loved you, he said. I held his gaze. I believe you, I said. But love isn't enough when you don't protect someone. His eyes filled. He said, I can protect you now. I smiled slightly. That's like offering an umbrella after the house burned down, I said. He blinked. Hurt. I softened my voice just a little. Caleb, I said, if you want to grow from this, do it. But you don't get to use me as your lesson. He nodded slowly. He stepped back, and then he asked, so what happens now? I looked up at the sky for a second, then back at him. Now, I said, I live my life without people who think I'm a resource. He left, and I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt clean. A few months later, I heard through the grapevine that Kendra was engaged. Not to Caleb, to someone else. A man she met through a friend of Denise. They did a small wedding. A cheap venue. A rushed photographer. A cake from a grocery store. And I know that sounds petty, but the part that matters is this. They didn't get to stand on my shoulders. They didn't get to turn my work into their glow. They had to build their own little stage. And they hated it. My mom tried to send me a Christmas card that year. No apology. Just a photo of her and Denise smiling like nothing happened. I returned it unopened. Not with a note. Not with a message. Just returned. Because silence, when it's chosen, is power. So that's what happened. My family tried to hijack my wedding and hand it to my cousin like I was a coat they could pass around. They thought I'd stay quiet because it would be too embarrassing to admit what they'd done. They thought shame would keep me obedient. They were wrong. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to beg. I just needed to stop cooperating with the version of me they invented. My name is Anne, and this is what happened when I was pushed beyond restraint. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this story.